seasons, the Celtics could have as many as 6 first-round picks, including up to 4 this season alone. Their own first-round pick and the better first-rounder from either the Kings or the Sixers. They'll also get the Grizzlies pick if it's not in the top 8, and the Clippers pick if it's not top 14. So, the designated rookie rule is what makes it tough, though, for the Boston Celtics. The rule states that teams can have up to 2 designated rookies on their roster at a time, but only one of them can be acquired via trade. And they've already got Kyrie Irving under that rule. So, the only way Boston can land AD now is if they get rid of Kyrie. Probably not going to happen. Otherwise, they can't trade for Davis until July 1st, which is when Kyrie will likely decide to become an unrestricted free agent. Celtics head coach Brad Stevens was asked about all of this just a few minutes ago.
Coach, big news today. Anthony Davis has requested a trade from the Pelicans. I know obviously you can't comment specifically, but what's your reaction when you hear something like that?
That I can't comment. You don't really pay attention to any of it until it crosses your desk from somebody that's involved in the conversations.
See, that's how you handle the no tampering rule. Brian Windhorst joins us live now. Let's start there. What are you hearing from inside the Celtics organization, Brian?
Oh, they're paying attention to it, Sage. They've been paying attention to it for a long time. This is something that has been on their radar. They've been aware of this obscure rule, and they've been concerned that this day would come. They knew that they would have a better chance to trade for Anthony Davis in the summer than if he asked to be traded during the year, and this did not make them happy. What they are hoping is that the Pelicans will show patience. They are going to show patience. They're not trading Kyrie Irving. They want to pair Kyrie Irving with Anthony Davis, but they are going to sweat it for these next 9 days. If Anthony Davis is still a Pelican at 3 p.m. next Thursday, the Celtics' chances of getting him in the summer explode. If there's serious talks between the Knicks or Lakers between now and then, the Celtics are going to sweat. This is a scenario they've been preparing themselves for weeks, Sage.
So it's Celtics and then, of course, Lakers. That's the team that we've heard really from day one. A lot has to happen if they want to land him, though, by the February 7th deadline, Brian. What could happen between now and then, I guess?
Yeah, the only thing I think that is left for Anthony Davis is to directly demand a trade to the Lakers. He'll probably face an additional fine, but he's giving up $80 million by asking out of New Orleans in a supermax. I don't think a few $100,000 extra would really matter to him. The thing about it is when you talk to people in the league, Sage, they are not impressed with the Lakers' offer. And not only that, the Pelicans would have to immediately start evaluating these Lakers players for contracts. For example, Brandon Ingram is due an extension after this season. I do not think that the Lakers are in the best position, but I will say this, if they're going to get Anthony Davis, it's going to be in the next 9 days. After that, their hopes are the inverse of the Celtics. They diminish greatly.
And people at home should not forget that Anthony Davis is the exact same agent as LeBron James and Rich Paul. Brian Windhorst with...
Say that's the message from the NBA during Super Bowl week.
Good point.
Happy hour somewhere, and right now those smiles might be coming from L.A.
Maybe, yes. Here's the thing. We had a Woj bomb dropped on us this morning, and it's one that will have a ripple effect throughout the NBA as Anthony Davis wants out of the Big Easy. That's right, it was a Woj bomb. It took place at exactly 7:09 a.m. Eastern time, and it took the NBA world by storm. Our Adrian Wojnarowski saying this. Agent Rich Paul has notified the New Orleans Pelicans that all NBA forward Anthony Davis has no intention of signing a contract extension if and when presented, and that he has requested a trade. Paul told ESPN on Monday, and quote, reaction from the Pelicans today, starting with head coach Alvin Gentry.
Do you expect anything to happen before the deadline?
That one you'd have to take up with Dell and Mickey.
If you were to get injured, you lose leverage as far as being able to have him as a trade asset. From that same point, does that leave you wary at all to play him?
No. The simple answer is no. I mean, when guys are ready to play and he wants to, he's already made it clear that he wants to play, then we're going to play him.
Drew, what do you think this franchise needs in order to be able to keep a player like Anthony Davis?
Couldn't tell you.
When you guys you don't even start to think about why someone would leave a situation. I mean, this would be the most expensive contract in NBA history.
Right. Again, I guess Anthony's leaving, so I don't know.
Lots of questions right now, but late this afternoon, the Pelicans released a statement about the trade news. Here's part of what it says. Relative to specific talks of a trade, we will do this on our timeline, one that will make sense for our team, and it will not be dictated by those outside of our organization. We have also requested the league to strictly enforce the tampering rules associated with this transaction, end quote. So this news comes 10 days after Davis injured his left index finger, suffering a volar plate avulsion fracture in the Pelicans' loss to Portland. So far, he's missed 4 games. The Pelicans have lost 3 of them. Davis was expected to miss 1 to 2 weeks with the injury on his non-shooting hand, and again, that was 10 days ago. He is still out for now. As for his contract situation, the 5-time All-Star can become a free agent next year, the summer of 2020. He could sign a 5-year max deal worth $240 million if he re-signs with the Pelicans. But now, again, Woj is saying Davis's agent, Rich Paul, has made it clear he will not sign it. So if he gets his wish to be traded before then, he can re-sign with the team, but only get $205 million with the team that he's traded to. If he doesn't get traded and leaves next summer as a free agent, the max he can get is 4 years, $152, so a significant difference financially. The man who broke the story, Adrian Wojnarowski, joins me now. And first, Woj, let's start with New Orleans. The Pelicans maybe thought about this coming. The news drops today, thanks to you. What are they going to do?
Well, there was an expectation that this was becoming an inevitability, and they got it this weekend, and they've got 10 days until the trade deadline. New Orleans is in no rush to do a deal for Anthony Davis. Remember, as you said, he's under contract all the way through next season, and for them to do a deal between now and February 7th, I'm told they've got to be overwhelmed with an offer that they can't believe would be available later for them. And that's going to be difficult to do, especially because the Celtics won't be involved between now and the trade deadline because they can't do a deal until later in the spring because they have Kyrie Irving on their roster.
Okay, so we'll break that down because that is a little bit confusing. So that's New Orleans right now. What about Anthony Davis? Of course, he's out with the finger, but what's he going to do?
Well, the one thing that he and Rich Paul have left to do between now and the trade deadline is, let's say there's no traction on a Lakers deal. They could essentially tell the organization, and they can tell the rest of the league, that we're only going to sign an extension with the Lakers. So if you trade us somewhere else, I'll be a rental player. I'll go to LA in 2020. That may not stop teams from going ahead and doing it anyway, but it does put some pressure, and it might depress the market. But ultimately, New Orleans still has control because they're the ones who decide if there's going to be a trade or not.
The Lakers, of course, have been a topic for a very long time. You go back to December when there was talk of tampering, when LeBron answered the question about having AD there. By the way, LeBron James, Anthony Davis, both represented by Rich Paul. So Magic Johnson and company, what's he doing right now? Because we got 10 days till the deadline.
They've got to put together their young players, draft picks, their best assets outside of LeBron James, and make a compelling offer to New Orleans. Remember, 2 years ago, they didn't do it with Indiana with Paul George. They thought they'd get him in free agency. They didn't get him. Kawhi Leonard, they didn't make an overwhelming offer to the Spurs. Thought they'd get him in free agency. They're trailing heading into this summer with Leonard. Right now, they have an opportunity with Davis to try to find a way to get a deal done. But the Lakers may not have the kind of assets that just make New Orleans do this now. The Pelicans may just wait to see what Boston can do post-trade deadline. Explain that. It is a little confusing. Why can't they do anything now? Because of the provisions of the contracts that Kyrie Irving and Anthony Davis both have. Like, you can't have 2 of those designated player exception contracts on your roster at once. They need Kyrie Irving to get into free agency on July 1. Then they can do it. But they could agree to a trade in principle around the draft, prior to the draft, finalize it on July 1. But essentially, Boston, who has coveted Anthony Davis for a long time, they need to, what they'll probably do is tell New Orleans, put the brakes on. We're going to make you a big offer at some point. You got to wait for the trade deadline to pass, and let's get to the offseason. They certainly have the most assets, but remember, Anthony Davis said this recently. It isn't about the money. It's about going to the right team and establishing a legacy. We'll see how this plays out. Woj, stand by. Kevin, over to you.
Sage, the Brow is just the latest superstar to request a trade. Remember, 2 summers ago, Paul George said he wanted out of Indiana. He was traded to the Thunder less than a month later. Around that same time, Kyrie made it clear that he no longer wanted to play alongside LeBron in Cleveland. By the end of the summer, he had been dealt to Boston in a blockbuster trade. Last season, we had the Kawhi Leonard saga. After months of speculation about possible tension between Leonard and the Spurs regarding his quad injury, Kawhi was traded to the Raptors this past offseason. Most recently, Jimmy Butler had his falling out with the Timberwolves. and was eventually dealt to Philly and the Sixers. Another star who famously changed teams, Kevin Durant, was asked earlier today if trade demands are a topic among players.
AD wanted to play basketball somewhere else. Like, it's not like the president shutting down the government. It's just basketball. So, of course, we talk about it. And we all, as players, we want guys to do exactly what they want to do in this league. We have a short amount of time, so why not do what you want?
Great to have Jalen Rose with us here on SportsCenter. Woj just said this, the Pelicans are in no rush when it comes to pressure and expectations. What's on the line here for the Lakers in the next 10 days to acquire Anthony Davis before that trade deadline?
Woj alluded to it. The Lakers cannot pump fake. They missed out on a couple of opportunities, in particular with Paul George. He was in an Indiana Pacer uniform, said he wanted to be the Lakers. They did not go and get him. They felt they could do it at the end of the year. He gets traded to OKC as a rental player, falls in love with it, and now he's starting in the All-Star game. Guess whose spot that he took? Anthony Davis, who has had career highs for the Pelicans in points, rebounds, assists, and steals, but yet they're in the lottery. So for the Lakers, this is basically Rich Paul and Anthony Davis saying, y'all have a 10-day contract until the trade deadline to get this done. If it does not get done, then it gets opened up to other suitors, in particular the Boston Celtics this summer.
All right, in this stare down, the Lakers can't afford to blink. And back in September, you said that we would be talking about Anthony Davis being a Laker prior to next season. What led you to make that statement back then?
Well, just talking to people in the league and understanding that's where today's game is. And to bring things full circle, when Danny Ainge brought his big three together in Boston with Kevin Garnett, Ray Allen, and Paul Pierce, it was the precursor to players now controlling their own destiny through what I'm calling pre-agency. That's a year and a half before their deal is actually up, letting the team know that they don't want to re-sign. So when an MVP player like LeBron James tells the Cleveland Cavaliers, basically, I can't win a championship here, I need to go to Miami to make it happen. Now that paves the way for Kevin Durant to join the 73-win team. It paves the way for the guys that you mentioned earlier, Jimmy Butler, Kyrie Irving, Paul George, all of those guys, and Kawhi Leonard, to tell the teams the exact same thing. So for the Lakers, you must strike right now. And for Anthony Davis, it's really unfortunate watching his team, in particular, Drew Holiday, look heartbroken in that interview.
Yeah, you foresaw it. I'm going to take you to Vegas before the Super Bowl, Jalen. Thank you so much here for joining us on SportsCenter. So we take a look at the Western Conference. The Pelicans currently sit at 13th, ahead of only the Grizzlies and the Suns. They're 6 games back, the Clippers, for that 8th and final playoff spot. Look at the Lakers sitting in that 9th spot, 2 games out. Coming.
Back to our top story, the Anthony Davis trade request from the Pelicans. And on ESPN.com, our NBA reporter Tim Bontemps had this to say about what the Lakers should offer to try to get AD before the February 7th trade deadline. He said, offer every single asset they have to New Orleans and hope it's enough. And by every single one, I truly mean every one. You see him here, Brandon Ingram, Kyle Kuzma, Josh Hart, Lonzo Ball, Zubac, multiple first-round picks. Any combo shouldn't stop the Lakers from pairing Davis with LeBron. Part of the reason that's the case, though, is that it's hard to see it being enough to get the job done. So back in December, Woj laid out the Lakers' trade priorities for this season. Listen.
They're not going to give away picks and their top young players in some deal that makes them incrementally better this season, because they've got to save all those assets for Anthony Davis, a big trade this summer, either pre or post free agency. You know, that's why they've looked at guys who are on one-year deals who don't have money going forward.
All right, those comments led our Lakers reporter, Dave McMenamin, to ask LeBron about the possibility of playing with Davis. Here's what LeBron said. You may recall. The quote was, "That would be amazing. That would be amazing, like, duh. That would be incredible," end quote. That was back on December 18th. Then 3 days later, the Pelicans were in L.A. taking on the Lakers. Here's what head coach Alvin Gentry had to say about LeBron's comments. Quote, "We're not trading him. We're not trading him under any circumstance. Why is it not tampering if players are saying it? Should we start having Davis say, "Why don't we trade for LeBron?" End quote. He was frustrated then and probably still is today. Everybody's talking about it, though, including Lakers forward Brandon Ingram.
That'll be good for the Lakers or whatever team that gets him. I'm sure he'll be happy in whatever situation he is. He's a really, really good player, and any team that gets him will be happy to have him.
Oh, such a fine line with this tampering stuff. Dave McMenamin, our Lakers reporter, joining us now. And Dave, we just went over what Bontemps said. And the Lakers, of course, have been clamoring for another star to join LeBron for a long time. How do you think they can get this done?
I'm right on the same page with Bontemps when it comes to this. When you have a chance to get a generational talent like Anthony Davis, while you pair him with one of the greatest players of all time in what's left of his prime, you do it. And if they were to say, you know, we're going to offer you a Zubats and an Ingram and Lonzo Ball and try to hold on to, say, Kuzma and Hart. Well, when February 7th comes around, New Orleans, and then they say, you know what, actually give me Ingram or this deal doesn't get done, guess what you're going to give them? So you might as well just make your initial offer be a strong one right out of the gate. So
we'll see how that plays out. In the meantime, LeBron and Magic trying to bring the Lakers back to their glory days. Our Jackie McMullen spoke with Brian Windhorst on the Hoop Collective podcast and talked specifically about the future of head coach Luke Walton. Listen to this.
There's a lot of tension in that building, And I think it's, you know, people are wondering about Luke Walton, even though Jeannie Buss very strongly and said, you know, I want Luke to be here. I back him 100%. But then also made the point that has to be made, and that is that she hired Irvin Magic Johnson to make these decisions. And, you know, if Irvin feels differently, she gave him the power to make those kind of decisions. It's clear to me, and probably to you, Brian, that LeBron's camp would prefer a coaching change. They're not too subtle about that.
Dave, we heard this talk back at the beginning of the season, and everything was fine. What do you hear about Luke Walton maybe being wanted out by LeBron and company?
Well, Jeannie, her quotes to Zach Lowe on his podcast were that Luke's doing an incredible job and he has the support of everyone in this building. So to me, Luke Walton's job is safe through the end of the 2018-2019 regular season. And then after that, all bets are off. We don't know how this team will perform, if it will make the postseason, et cetera, et cetera. There's certainly a championship expectation for this group in the next several years. Luke's job status will be determined by how the rest of this season goes.
And we all know how much power LeBron James wields. We'll see how that goes as they try to keep business as usual, hosting the Sixers tomorrow night. Dave, thank you.